Hello, welcome to a special little video here I'm doing on Red Dwarf books. I have 20 here I'm going to kind of explain. I'm not going to really review them and give you my opinions on them. I'm just going to explain what they are, because there's a lot out there. There's only like 4 novels, but as you can see there's 20 books here. I'm going to explain kind of what goes on in them, if you get my meaning. So I'll tell you, who should buy them. If you're into one aspect of things, maybe you should buy it, and if you're not, don't buy it. So I'll just crack into it. First off, we're going to start with the 4 novels. First up, here's the first one. Both Doug Naylor and Rob Grant did this one. It's called Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers. And it starts off at the beginning of Red Dwarf. It gives you a little tiny couple of chapter or two on the first episode. So how Lister ends up on Red Dwarf, and how he meets Rimmer for the first time. And there's I won't go too much into it, but where the book here goes into so much more detail. There's a brilliant kind of scene in it where Lister's going up to Red Dwarf for the first time, and the book explains perfectly how massive it is in a way that they couldn't do in the 80s when they're shooting it model-wise and the rest of it. And he meets Holly for the first time, and it just blows kind of what they did in, not them damning the TV version, but it kind of blows it out of water, just how you can visualize it in your mind what Lister would have seen there. So like all the books, I'm going to just give you a look at the back here, and you can pause it if you want and have a read of it. I think this is absolutely essential. This is the one book of any book here today that I recommend all Red Dwarf fans to get. Absolutely essential. So if you're not a big fan of reading, there's also the audio version. First off, this is Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, the radio show, narrated by Chris Barry, and it's kind of a condensed version of this book, and has lots of sound effects and all this kind of stuff going on in the background. And obviously, Chris is good at impressions, so he does a good job. There's unabridged versions, which is just word for word the whole thing, and I'll have links down below to all the things, where to buy them. Audible does a good one of it, and it shouldn't be too expensive either. The next novel is Better Than Life. I think most people that are familiar with the show knows where that's going to go. Won't go too much into it. Completely separate from the TV series now. The end of the last book was completely separate from the TV shows. This one is just totally separate from the episodes. So there's the back of it there. If you want to have a pause of that and have a read. Again, there's a radio version of this, and there's unabridged versions and all that with links below in the description. So after that one we have the Omnibus, which is basically Red Dwarf, the official novel, and then Better Than Life just put together, 2 books in one. But there's also a couple of new bits of material thrown in the middle of everything. So as well as that, there's a couple of extras here, backward. That's kind of where it all came from. The beer mat, which is basically where they put down the ideas for the first time for Red Dwarf. Dave Holland's is the radio show that was the kind of first carnation of Red Dwarf, where they just had one guy and a talking computer going through space and his adventures. And then Red Dwarf, the pilot script, which is basically more or less Red Dwarf, the end, the first one that was produced on the telly. So there's the back. Want to have a look? Next up we got Backwards, where this is Rob Grant on his own. The last 2 were the 2 of them together, and they kind of took turns on novels here. Starts off, as you can imagine, following the Backwards episode, but then kind of I haven't read this one yet, so I'm not sure what happens in it. I'm leaving this for a treat for later on. And there's the back, if anybody wants to have a pause of that. This will be Doug Naylor's book that he brought out, Last Human. I did read this one. It's quite good. A lot of people like to compare who wrote the better book, so I haven't read backwards yet, so I can't really say myself. But this one, totally independent from the episodes. There will, in the last two, well, this one anyway, there's kind of quotes that will come from the books, gags, good gags from the episodes will be thrown in here every now and again, but the storyline is unique from the TV shows. So for fans of hardback, they do all come in hardback. The first hardback here was only brought out in America, and you can see it doesn't really look like the TV show at all. Someone commented once that was a good observation, that the person that did this illustration obviously never seen the show. It did come out after the shows, but some guy probably in America that just kind of read it, a little bit of it, and said, okay, there's a cat, so he drew a human with a cat head, and you can see that it doesn't really follow. There's a white kind of lister there with London Jets, you can see. So it's quite funny, that one. If you are buying that one, it does cost, it's probably going to be from America, so it costs a lot because it's quite rare, and then it would cost a bit of money for the shipping as well if you live in Europe. And the two books are in there. The first two books, Better Than Life as well. And then you have the rest of them. They're just quite similar to the softback copies. So that was the novels section of this video, and it's pretty straightforward. Now we get on to the kind of individually kind of books. First up, I'm going to show you, I think is absolutely essential again for any Red Dwarf fan, is Robert Llewellyn's Man in the Rubber Mask. Basically, this is an autobiography from Robert Llewellyn, the guy who plays Crichton, about his involvement and his memories of what happened from series 3, where he got introduced, to series 5, and his kind of escapades in the whole Red Dwarf USA thing. This is a brilliant insight into the banter between the cast and crew, and he kind of captures a lot of the moments, like the interaction between the cast and the audience, and how the kind of audience was able to bring them great performances out of them, and all this kind of stuff. And at the moment, Robert Llewellyn is releasing the kind of follow-on to this, kind of like Man Rubber Mask Part 2, where basically he's going from Series 6 up to Red Dwarf X, which is just filmed at the moment, and he's releasing these month by month at the moment. The link's going to be below. It's going to be from a website called Audioboo. You can buy, the way he has it set up with Audioboo is basically you buy the book, this book here at the moment, or I'll try to explain it. So the way it's set up with Audioboo is you pay £5 sterling and you get Robert Llewellyn himself narrating the whole of this book. And if you buy that now, you'll also include all the chapters that he releases at the moment. So basically you pay a £5 and each month he brings it out, you get an email or something saying your subscription is in, and you can go and download the next part. Or if you're watching this video after it's all out, it should be all there for you. So I was saying this is absolutely essential, I think. Great insight into the whole cast, crew, and all their experiences behind the set. So now we come to the book that was my inspiration for making this video. It's Craig Charles's The Log, A Dwarfer's Guide to Everything. First off, I thought this book was going to be a novel, and a great story to tell that's set inside the Red Dwarf universe, but that's not the case. So I was initially disappointed to find out it's something else. The best way I can kind of describe it is reading the ramblings of a severely schizophrenic person. Basically, the idea of the book is Dave Lister, if he was to die, what kind of advice and memories could he chronicle of the human race for anyone else, any other species that finds this book. But also, it's from this perspective as well of Craig Charles as well. So it kind of goes between the two of them, which is good and funny, and it's a weird kind of book to read. So basically I read a bit of it and kind of wasn't too keen of it after my initial disappointment. So I pulled out an old file I downloaded off the Ganymede and Titan website, the fan website, which is basically the audiobook of this, which Craig Charles reads out, and the link is going to be below in the description bar on YouTube. So I gave that a listen back and forth on the way to work, so it's word for word again, the whole thing, and I thought it was hilarious. I found it really funny. There's some great things. He summarizes past events in history quite, in a kind of, in a couple of lines, and really funny. And then he kind of talks about what's happening in the present day and back in the 1990s when it was made, and then he kind of looks at it from Dave Lister's point of view from the future, and he talks about what happens, a couple of thousand years from now as fact, and it's just kind of funny to see where they kind of thought things could go and all that kind of stuff. So in the end, I thought it's a brilliant book, and I would recommend definitely have a listen to the audiobook. Yeah, so that's basically the book kind of summarized myself. There's the back of it. So I get the top one to have a pause. There is some cool illustrations in here. Kind of just some more advice. Don't head out to sea on a windsurf unless you know how to turn. Very good advice. And there's also lots of pictures in it. Some crazy pictures. Some you wouldn't really think of Lister. So here's a chapter on inventions. I can see a couple of things there. So there we have it. Next up we have the Making of Red Dwarf. Very good if you're into this kind of stuff. If you're not, you'd probably be okay just looking at the documentaries and kind of have a glimpse over. So Making Red Dwarf should really kind of be called the Making of Gunmen of the Apocalypse, because 90% focused around that one. But if you're going to pick one episode to focus on, why not pick the one that won an Emmy in America? It's easy to read, done in kind of big writing, plus lots of nice pictures around the place. It's set, as I was saying, it's set before the age of DVD documentaries, so at the time this would have been really good, really good for all the kind of Red Dwarf fans and everyone that's interested in the kind of making part of it. I would draw attention, this is kind of, there's models at the back, so you can see the quality of pictures in here. As you can see, there's the Simulin ship from Gunmen. It's just sitting in one of the rooms. So you can see lots of illustrations, most of it coming from Gunmen of the Apocalypse, some storyboards. They'll show you there how Crichton was set up to receive the gunshots, the blood or the splatters that come out of them. Some inside pictures of Starbug, a little bit of the layout of everything in Starbug there, and there's a nice forward at the beginning as well, some more behind the scene pictures. So there you have the Making of Red Dwarf. So we're entering a section now I'm going to kind of dub the kiddie teenage section, because there's 3 books coming up, kind of lots of colourful pictures, lots of easy to read stuff. So the first up is the log, as you can see there. Probably the best of the 3. There is an alternative white cover out for the log. I haven't got it myself. You can see it popping up on Amazon and stuff. It's the same as this. It's called Log number 1996. Well, 1996, the year it came out, and there is a very good review of this book done by Red Dwarf Obsessive. I'll put a link below if you want to check that out. It goes into more detail on the book. Essentially it's a diary of all the crew and Holly, and they keep throughout the year, and they'll come in and write stuff in each day, little gags, little goes at each other. Sometimes there's multiple entries where they go back and forth between each other, or see how a week progresses when they're trying different things. There is a lot of nice photos inside. There is actually a good few original Space Corps directives inside. I can show you one there. So there's a good example of original one here. You can have a read of it yourself. So lots of nice pictures. As you can see, it's a kind of diary form. And if you want to check out in more detail, go to that video in the link below. So next up we have the official Red Dwarf companion, which goes up to series 5, and basically kind of gives, it's very kiddish in a way, or anyone that's new to Red Dwarf, they're the two people that would like this the most. It kind of gives you a profile of each character and what they're like, and gives you kind of brief synopsis of all the shows. The best thing about the book is that after season 1, there's a great collection of photos in it. So season 1 wouldn't have many photos, but after season 1 and 2, basically they take a lot more better shots. There's some very interesting model shots at the end as well. See the polymorph there, I'm messing around with it. So wouldn't really recommend it, but there's some great photos in it if you're into that kind of stuff. Next up we have the Space Corps Survival Manual. Again, kind of in the kiddie section. Really good part. If I have a look at the bottom of the page here, there's a flip book where a guy chops off his hand. It's very good. So basically, survival manual for different things you might come across out there in space and how to survive them. Got a couple of laughs out of it. There's some. Each member of the crew fills in a kind of survival questionnaire, what they do in different bits, and that's quite funny. So basically, it's kind of a proper survival manual, and then the guys would write over things or fill in those questionnaires and make it a lot more funnier. Okay, so now we're entering a section where there's go look at some script books. There's 4 books I have here. First off is Red Dwarf VIII, the official book. I definitely recommend this over all the other script books. People who don't like Series 8, I think, should definitely have a read of this, because it made me a lot more appreciative of Season 8, I must say, and a bigger fan of it all around. I did have a read of this before I seen the documentaries, so it was my first kind of insight into the goings on behind the scene of Series 8. First off, there's a great foreword from Doug NAYLOR. So he's on his own at this section, as you know, and then there's an introduction to each episode. So kind of Doug would talk about obviously what he thinks of the episode, if there's something that didn't happen in the episode he wanted to happen, he kind of tells you his vision for the episode and why things didn't work out the way they wanted to, budget-wise. And he's saying like some episodes went into 2 or 3 parts, so originally that wasn't supposed to be the case. But they just ran out of money for new episodes that never filmed and had to drag some episodes out, and so it kind of, you know, after reading all of that, I was a lot more appreciative of the series, I must say. So that's why I think people that don't like Red Dwarf 8 should have a read of it. So just going into the book itself, some great visuals, but then this is kind of really good. There's bits of script that they kind of scribble out that they didn't use, so that probably ended up in extras and stuff on the DVD box sets. But again, before those DVD box sets come out, when this book came out, this would have been very good for all the fans to have a look at. So as you go on, there's kind of lots of storyboards, and then there's also some really good drawings. There's a great drawing of the scores there. So out of the books, out of script books, I definitely recommend this one. So next up is the first script book that came out. It's Red Dwarf Primordial Soup, and then its sub-name is the least worst scripts. So kind of like the best scripts, but this basically just does exactly what it says in the tin. It's just the scripts, and has, you know, bits and pieces like saying external this, internal that, all that kind of stuff. There's some nice pictures in the middle of it, and that's basically it. So again, nowadays you might find these on the internet, scripts, so you can get them there if you really want them. So it is kind of obsolete a little bit nowadays, but great to have if you like having the Red Dwarf stuff like I do. So after this, the next one to come out in this script wise was Son of Soup, basically exactly the same again. This must have went down so well they got a second book on the go. Again, just more scripts. There's the back of it. Then we have the last of script books, which is Red Dwarf, Scenes from Red Dwarf. Penguins brought it out for some reason. I think it was something to do with 60 years of Penguin or something like that. And it's just scenes. It's not the whole episodes written down. It's just little scenes saying if you wanted to act them out with your mates. So that's Camille. And then just trying the orange aardvark kind of thing. So again, I wouldn't recommend it unless you really just wanted to have them, or if you're mad into scripts. Otherwise, you can just get them online. Next up, we have a real doozy. It's the Red Dwarf role-playing game. As you can see, it's set after Series 8 or Series 8. Role-playing game. I don't want to go too much into it. If you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't, basically a bunch of people sit around and pretend to be characters from the Red Dwarf universe and have a game inside their own imagination as they sit around, and one person's in charge of the game and tells everyone else what's happening. First off, just the book itself, there's some beautiful illustrations inside. Just bring it to the Gelf one here. So you can just imagine what a kind of graphic novel Red Dwarf might look like if someone got their hands on it and were able to give it a go. I'd say it'd be very good. Some people are calling for it. I agree. So basically, you got the back of the book and you photocopy this page. It's a personnel file, and you fill in your skills and all your kind of things. You listen that. You can be the cat, you can be the Gelf, you can be anybody in the Red Dwarf universe, and they all have pros and cons to themselves. And then you can go and pick up weapons, and it tells you, you know, what kind of range it is, what kind of damage it does, how good the weapon is. You can go into any ships. It'll tell you, like, there's the blue midgets, the Marks 1s and 2s, and tells you. So it kind of gives you rules for everything so you can play along, basically. And that's what it is. Role-playing game. What do I suggest it? If you have a lot of friends set up that want to play it, that you're used to playing role-playing games, go for it. If you have a lot of mates that are into Red Dwarf and are interested in playing it, go for it. If you don't have those kind of things set up, I maybe wouldn't recommend buying it, unless you just want to have it just for the sake of having it, because it was printed in America. Like, so again, most of them are over there. So if you're in Europe like I am, I had to buy it over, a lot of shipping because it is a big book, and it was expensive at the time when it came out. You can see $35 US at the back there. There's some great visuals there again. So if you have those things set up, definitely I'd recommend going ahead for it. But if you don't, you know, it might be a bit of a waste of money because it is very expensive. The next Red Dwarf book is the only one I don't actually have here. It's a follow-on to role-playing book. It's called the series Sourcebook. So basically, you use it in conjunction with this. I think this is what it is. This is the rules, and then the Sourcebook is kind of based around each of the BBC episodes, episode series 1 to 8, and kind of breaks those episodes down for you so you can play inside those episodes. I think that's what it is. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what that kind of information I got off the official site, reddwarf.co.uk. So in this kind of role-playing series, the Deep 7 make these books. They also brought out an AI screen, which is basically a big screen you can put up in front of the person who's controlling the game so no one can see notes and stuff. I haven't got that myself. Quite rare these days as well, so it'll be expensive when you're buying it on eBay or Amazon. But I think there's some good graphics on it and some notes on the back of it as well. And they also brought out some pages as well to go with, some more pages for this book here. So next up we have the Red Dwarf quiz book. It's a great story behind this. Two fans of the show, basically tried to test each other's knowledge and listed lots of questions they could ask each other. And then they got so many questions and thought it was so much fun themselves. They pitched the idea to Rob Grant, Doug Naylor, and they got the go ahead to make a book, and they brought it out, which is fantastic. Great to see some fan interaction with the show, brilliant, coming to fruition in a book. So just have a look at the back here. I recommend you actually read this one. So here's a couple of samples of the questions in the show. How many Selim to Nodnal? When is Spatial Soup Day? What is Space Corps Directive 196156? And who said, that's it, we're dead in tank tops? So that kind of gives you a flavour of what's inside the book. Also inside the book, lots of word puzzles. Lots of cool things going on. But the questions are hard and they're funny. And the answers are all at the back as well. So it's all there for you. Very good book. If you're into quiz books or want to test it out, give it a go. It was actually so good and went down so well, they brought out a second one. So it's 2 Red Dwarf quiz books. This one's Red Dwarf, A Question of Smeg. Same people behind it. And same kind of deal again. So you can see the answers at the back. And loads more questions. Very hard questions, very good questions. You think you're a big fan of Red Dwarf, you think you know lots about Red Dwarf until you read these books. And see, there's a lot of information in Red Dwarf, and it's quite funny to see if you know it all. So last but not least, we're taking a look at the program guides. There's 3 brought out. The first edition brought out in '93 and goes up to Series 5, and then the third one brought out goes up to Series 8. Basically, there's a lot in these books. It starts off by giving you a description of each of the main characters and the actors who played them. That's a kind of good section. Then in this one, it's like 130 pages of episode guides with a brief synopsis about the episode, followed by interesting facts and behind-the-scenes stories from each of the episodes. Sort of like what's on the box set documentaries now, but again, like the scripts, these came out in a different time before the box sets and DVDs were able to put all these extras on. So at the time, brilliant, amazing. The first time you got to see kind of behind the scenes kind of thing from all the actors. But that's not to say these books aren't still relevant. It's definitely worth a good read, I think. There's lots of tidbits that mightn't have made it onto the documentaries. It's hard to tell if they're all there or not. But I'd recommend giving it a read if you're a massive fan, and check out those little bits, because there is some good stories in it still that you might have heard from the documentaries. Then there's 100 pages in this book here about a database that basically goes over every Red Dwarf thing that's ever mentioned in the show and talks about it. So the smallest things to the biggest of things, and there's some very funny ones in there. So definitely worth a skip through. I'd recommend that as well. So that was the back of them. So before I let you go, just to make you aware that Rob Grant did write some books outside Red Dwarf universe, and I'll just show you this one because it's kind of sci-fi orientated. And this one's called Colony, worth a read. He has a couple of books out, Fat and Incompetent as well, and amazingly, personally, this is the only one I'm going to really give a personal recommendation. I found Incompetent to be brilliant. I haven't read too many comedy books, funny books, but I was laughing out loud at some of it and just giggling the whole way through the rest of the book, and I didn't want to put it down at all. I just kept turning the pages. It was fantastic. So I'd definitely recommend Incompetence. And just one more book, last book I have a look at, just have it here. It's Ganymede and Titan as a fan website, and they brought out this thing called Garbage Pod, a collection of Red Dwarf fan writings from 2003 to 2011. There's the back of it here. You want to have a read of that? Basically, it's a fan website. That's a good quotes down the bottom. It's a fan website, and they do write-ups on lots of things. I'll show you some of the contents pages there. And kind of worth a read if you're interested in the kind of fandom element of Red Dwarf. A great chapter there called The Beginning. How kind of fan clubs used to operate before internet, and used to meet up and how things got going, and then they have a look at their favourite episodes and just say what they think of it. Definitely check out Ganymede Titan website. I'll have a link below as well. There's a link there. It's very good. So that's been all the Red Dwarf books I have reviewed. I'm not sure if there's too many other Red Dwarf books out there, official ones. This is an unofficial Red Dwarf book, and there is another unofficial one called Stasis Leaked, that I know of, I haven't read yet, or I don't have, where a woman just talks to Doug and Rob and other people just about how Series 1 was created and how they felt about it at the time. So I hope you enjoyed my explanation of the books. I hope it was good enough for you and gives you a better understanding of what the books are, and if you're into any of those kind of things, you know which one to go for. That was the whole point of this video, and if you stay to the end, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.